I'd like to welcome on a special guest. We have Jackson Johnson from Alabama, from the Alabama channel at the Voice of College Football. Also does the Jacksonian on his own channel. Introduce yourself, Jackson.
Oh man, I just got off Crimson Tide Live and I just told Tyler, I'm sorry I'm late. I just got done doing Crimson Tide Live with Coach Burt's and Jeffrey at On Talk Sports, where we talk about the Crimson Tide every single day on Alabama Voice College Football, or as Jeffrey says, or at least we try to. Hey, we're gonna get his quotes on a t-shirt one of these days. We're gonna get him trademarked. But yeah, I talked a little bit about the 9-game schedule. We talked a little bit about the recruiting updates and on the Jackson, as Tyler mentioned, I had on Justin Jolka for the 71st edition, where we talked a little bit about the Badgers, and he had to put up with my venting session a little bit about USC Notre Dame possibly going away. Believe me, if it's going away, I'll sob like a baby. But we did talk a little bit about Wisconsin and Luke Fickell and what's going on with the Big Ten and so on and so forth. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Wisconsin brings in 2025. But Tyler, thank you so much for having me on the 30th edition of Florida Gators Live. It is an honor being on with you, good buddy.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining us. But, you're an avid Alabama fan. I kind of wanted to get the perspective of other fan bases on this Florida Gator football team. A couple weeks ago, we had Hunter from the Tennessee channel come on. He talked about Tennessee and how that's a big rivalry game every single year for Florida and Tennessee. Now, I welcome you on, an Alabama fan. Not necessarily a rivalry. The way I kind of think about it, you have those two kids in elementary school who are just the best two athletes, so they always have to be put on two different teams, or it would just be unfair. You go and look at when they established the SEC championship game back in 91 or 92?
1992.
92. It's Florida Bama. Then year 93 is Florida Bama. Pretty sure it's the most amount of SEC championship games have been Florida versus Alabama. Now, the Alabama... What?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because 93, we only got in the ACC title game because Auburn was in trouble with the NCAA that year.
So, and now the Alabama kid grew up to end up being that 5-star talent that won 8 national championships since then. And the Florida one, we've had some up and downs, but we haven't been at that same exact powerhouse level of Alabama. But anytime we get a Florida-Bama game, which isn't too common, the last time we played was back in 2021. Do you remember that game?
Yes, it was closer than the experts had it. And I always told everybody where it's like when Mullen's an underdog, he always has his teams playing close.
Yeah, if you remember that game, and if you remember early on, Bama went up 21-3 in the first 8 minutes of that game. I was in the swamp for that game, and I thought it was over. But then Florida really, I wouldn't say dominated because we lost, but we really controlled the final 3.5 quarters of that game. And what it came down to, Bama was up 31-29. And Emory Jones on a 2-point conversion just doesn't make a decision with the ball. He can't decide if he wants to hand it off or tuck it, which ends up costing us that game. Could you imagine how different of a world we'd be living in, or college football world we'd be living in, if Florida converts that? Because we end up beating Tennessee the next week. So we probably still do that if we win that game, I'd assume. And that Kentucky game after that is where everything just fell apart.
Ugh.
How different? Because Dan Mullen he's winning that game. There's a lot of excitement. Recruiting probably jumps up a lot for him, which was a big reason he just stopped really caring a lot about college football or about, his job here. And maybe you win that Kentucky game. And instead of Florida now being a team that is on the downward spiral in 2021, you're talking about Florida as, hey, if they beat Georgia, they're going 12-0 probably. Or even if they lose to Georgia, they're going 11-1 and maybe a playoff team instead. It would have been crazy if we did that.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I think you would have seen a lot of Cousin Eddie memes for sure. But in all seriousness, though, 2021, Florida, had they beaten Alabama, I think you make a great point to where they could have gone at least 9-3, 10-2, maybe 11-1. But either way, they definitely would have been a near sits bowl team because, people tend to forget because, while people were throwing the baby out with the bathwater on Mullen in 2021, they forgot that Bolin was leading the Florida Gators to near Six Bowls throughout his whole tenure as head coach through 2018, 2019, and 2020. Although they didn't beat the Oklahoma Sooners, they did beat the Virginia Cavaliers, and they did beat the Michigan Wolverines, which, let's be honest, Michigan couldn't get it done in the bowl games in the first few years of the Harbaugh era.
Yeah, that's very true. I was about to get into 2020 because that's where it felt like Mullen was like about to take off. You start that 2020 season, and Kyle Pitts goes for 4 touchdowns in his first game against Ole Miss, and that was the all SEC schedule because of the illness that went around back then. Then they dropped that game to Texas A&M on a weird game that Florida really should have won, but ended up losing that. But then we cruised through the rest of our schedule, beat Missouri by 3 scores, end up beating Georgia by 3 scores, beat Arkansas by 30, scoring 63 against them. Control against Vanderbilt, beat Kentucky by 24, dominate Tennessee. But then everything got interesting. LSU team down like 30 players on the road at the Swamp, final game of the year. Earlier in the day, Keontae Johnson, the basketball player, ended up collapsing. So Gator fans already in a terrible mood. In a game where Florida was a huge favorite, Kyle Pitts doesn't play. LSU gets the sneak out win.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone knows about the Marco Wilson shoe throw and everything.
That screwed the whole season for the Florida Gators. Like, he got a little too cocky, throwing that little shoe. And if the game had gone to overtime, I think we would have seen Florida defeat LSU for sure. And it would have been like Florida, Alabama. Like how Clemson, Notre Dame, where Clemson beats Notre Dame, you got 2 ACC teams for 2020. I think that would have been the same case for Florida, Alabama for the 2020 SEC title at that time, where if you have a 1-loss Florida team and an unbeaten Alabama team, whereas Alabama's in the playoffs either way, but Florida wins, they basically clinch that playoff spot. I think you would have seen the SEC, ACC dominate that playoff field that year, and I think the Buckeyes would have got left out that year, and you would see a lot of Michigan people really trolling those Buckeyes throughout.
They only played 6 games. They didn't even deserve to be in back then. But yeah, you get to that 2020 2020 SEC championship game. What a game that ends up being, 52-46. You get some weird plays where Trey Dean gets the interception, and then John Mechie flattens him, and on a 3rd down, he throws the pick. Mac Jones throws the pick. Then you get the fumble, so Bama gets the ball back, and Bama kind of cruises. Like, they get up by like 2 or 3 scores in the second and third quarter, but then Florida comes back. Some miraculous plays by Kyle Pitts to really bring Florida within 1 score. And we get a stop on a 3rd down with like 30 seconds to go, but it wasn't enough. Bama ends up winning. And then you talk about that bowl game, Florida lost to Oklahoma. That's Kyle Pitts sat out, Kadarius Toney, like everybody sat out that game. Trask has a terrible start to that game, which really tanked his draft stock. But Florida was missing a lot in that game. Like, I wasn't really too concerned about losing. Really, the big downfall happens after that Kentucky game.
And to think 2021. To think that was going to become a conference game 7 months after the fact, when Oklahoma tests like, okay, we're joining the SEC. Bye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wild to think about, really.
I know.
But all right. Enough about the past. Now, we won't play each other this season. Maybe next year you might. Yeah, maybe next year you guys will. I'd come down to the Swamp, or we'll go up to Tuscaloosa. How do you see this Florida Gator team doing in 2025?
Well, they have to make sure they win at least one of the matchups in the first 4 games season, either LSU or Miami. Now, Miami, they're a Jekyll and Hyde team. They always win the games they shouldn't. They lose the games they shouldn't. And some fans have defended that, but I'm just going to tell you right now, it will come back to bite Mario Cristobal eventually. It could be that game for the Miami Hurricanes where they go against the Florida Gators and Florida wins that one. And I'm going to tell you right now, that could set up a lot of momentum for the Gators. Now, the tough one is winning in Death Valley. Not saying it can't be done, but you got Brian Kelly, and he's giving out Jimbo Fisher vibes at LSU. But still, though, you got to watch yourself against the LSU Tigers. But later on, you got the Texas Longhorns, where that's going to be like the only good game of week 6 that week. But as I say about sloppy slates, upsets are coming for the other games. But the Florida-Texas game, that's a trap game for the Texas Longhorns because they're sitting there thinking about the Oklahoma Sooners, the Red River rivalry, while Florida is starving Marvin for that upset victory over the Longhorns. And I got to be honest, I could see that possibly happening. Like, I would not be surprised if it does. And then we're looking at the Texas A&M Aggies. What version of A&M are we getting? What are we getting exactly? You got to go to Kyle Field. I mean, you can't win there. But who says
won
you
there in
can?
2022?
There you go. I mean, you got that. That's because you had like a bunch of players like smoking dope before they played South Carolina, and it carried on through the rest of the season. Like Jimbo, he's a joke. But like Elko, he's a lot better than Jimbo. Jimbo's sitting in his little hot tub, but Mike Elko's serious about winning. That's why I'm kind of like, better keep an eye on that game. I mean, I'm just, oh yeah. And Mississippi State, that's not 2014 Mississippi State. No worries there. But it's a good practice game to where you get the kinks out, make sure you've got everything looked over from where you went right, where you went wrong throughout the first 6 games of the season. You beat Mississippi State, you're definitely good to go. I mean, that's your easy win of the season. But the Georgia Bulldogs, I got to be honest, had Lagway not gotten hurt last season, I think you would have seen Florida defeat Georgia. Definitely would have. And this year, if you see Lagway and the Gators, yes, it is. Yes, it is College Football Show, George. No worries, man. But yeah, Tyler Whitfield does an amazing job on Florida at the Voice College Football. I mean, he's like a young genius. Like he's a wizard.
Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome, man. I say what I mean. But the Gators, yeah, I think they could beat the Bulldogs this season. And like the only win we've seen throughout this decade in the world's largest cocktail party is the 2020 season. That's got to be a motivating factor for the Gators. And if I'm the Gators, we're thinking about that one. That's what I'd be thinking.
I truly believe we win that game. So I fully believed. I was at that game last year when Lagway got the touchdown pass to Aiden Mizell to put us up 7-3. The next drive, we get an interception, go up 10-3. We get the ball back again after a Derek Wingo sack. And it's like, oh my goodness, defensively we're clamping down. Offensively, we're driving the ball down the field. But then Lagway gets hurt. And the entire Florida side of that stadium just went quiet. Like, it was kind of surreal. It's something that you only experience once. And at that time, it was so... I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it was sad. And we had a season where that 2024 season, week 1, we got boat raced by Miami. You know, week 3, we get mollywopped by Texas A&M. And then you finally start coming back, and you go on the road to a top 10 Tennessee team, and you dominate the first half, but you have a fumble on the 1-yard line, you miss a field goal, you get too many players on the field, you're only up 3-0 at halftime, you come out, take a 10-0 lead. On that same play, you got the touchdown. Graham Mertz ends up suffering that season-ending injury, and you end up losing in overtime. A game you were in control of for 3 quarters of, you end up losing it. And, you know, things just felt down. But then you get that game against Georgia, and it's like, wow, this is really the promise we've been showed. And Lagway just collapsed.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and you know, we look back at that last part of last season, you know, like it was announced that Napier had that contract extension before Texas, and Florida, I mean, fan base was raving mad. They were throwing beer, they were throwing food, all kinds of things. And especially when they lost to the Texas Longhorns. But all hope was not lost because like you had that winning streak to end the season. You defeat former SEC opponent Tulane Green Wave a few days before Christmas Day, and it's like boom, momentum for the 2025 season. So it's
Good
like
A good comment by George here. Everyone knows Georgia is a women's softball school, which the Gators just beat Georgia in women's softball in Game 3 to advance to the Women's College World Series just under the last 30 minutes. So, we applaud you to that one, George.
Nice. Oh man, our buddy Jeffrey's gonna love that one. He is not too crazy about Georgia as well. So we'll have to start we'll have to start some kind of a few clubs around here for boys college football. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, they're out drinking and driving constantly. So I mean, it's like you got so many Bulldogs doing that, but not our guys at Georgia at the boys college football. They're good dudes.
No,
they're good dudes for sure. But yeah, like the Gators for 2024, 2025. I'm gonna be honest, and this is a take you may have not heard. This could be a first one.
From last season or this coming up season?
This season in a way, and this involves Billy Napier. So like how last season you didn't hear that much about hot seat talk about Neil Brown because it's like, oh, West Virginia can do this, that, and the other, but then West Virginia goes out and has a disappointing season. I think Billy Napier is in that same boat. I think if you see Florida having a great season, finishing in the top 4 of the SEC or going 9-3, you're not hearing any hot seat talk. And particularly if you see the Florida Gators defeating the Georgia Bulldogs, you're good to go. You're good to go for 2025 and beyond, especially with Mike Bobo being a crappy offensive coordinator that he is for Georgia. And if you see Florida going 7-5, 6-6, which I don't think that's going to happen, but if you did, then the hot seat talk pits back up. Then potentially, oh, are we going to fire Napier? Are we not going to fire him? That conversation comes back up. But of course, the last bit of that 2025 season, you got to go Kentucky. That's unusual. Yep. You would think that'd be a September game, but oh well, yeah. Florida, Kentucky is. And if Kentucky's bad, we can just put them on. There you go. Oh, that's another thing too. Like the Tennessee Volunteers, late season, Gainesville, that looks like a win for Florida.
Yeah, that's one that they switched like the LSU game, it feels like. Tennessee was the third Saturday in September. That's what it was. And we haven't played them in out of September since 2001.
Yeah.
Which only happened because of the 9/11 terrorist attack.
Yep. And there's 2020 as well because of COVID. So
yep. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's easy to forget about 2020 because like Tennessee was terrible. So it's
I mean, so Jeremy, it's national disasters for the game to not be played in September until now. So it's going to be very interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just like we're gonna see what happens. Like I think that's gonna be a battle for who's gonna be in the top 4 of the SEC by that time. Like that could be a playoff clincher by that time. Like you see both teams 8-2, that's gonna be a great battle right there. And you're gonna want to have Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, and the Golden Retriever there at that game. So that
got George here. Nobody is ever firing Billy Napier. He'll retire from Florida in about 30 years. Hey, man, how many natties is he bringing us in that time period? Saban was at Bama for what, 07 to 23 or 24? Or 23.
Yep.
So he was there for 16 seasons. So we're getting 33 seasons out of Billy Napier. Let's hope he can bring us half of the amount of titles Bama won in that time period.
Oh, man.
Cross our fingers, but
well, Ole Miss, like that's one I'm keeping my eye on. Everybody's talking about Georgia, Texas, but they need to keep an eye on Florida, Ole Miss, because the fact of the matter is that's a revenge game for the Ole Miss Rebels. Can they get that win over Florida? Can Florida do what they did last season against Ole Miss? That November's tougher than it looks. And rivalry week, you got Florida State. Are they still going to be crying about we're going to leave you to the ACC, or are they going to actually focus on Florida? I don't think you guys are going to care. You're going to be like, oh, no, we're focusing on Florida State. We're not thinking about the future of college, but we're thinking about now.
Yeah, that's a big rivalry game. There's no reason Florida will go into that game underestimating the cinnamon rolls, as some people say.
That's funny. Cinnamon rolls.
But going back early in the season, in Billy Napier's tenure here, game 1, Utah, we end up winning that game in 2022. 2023, game 1 at Utah, we lose that one. Last year, game 1, Miami end up losing to them. Cam Ward puts himself out there as the best QB in college football. This is the first year that Florida isn't going to open up with a top 25 level opponent. We got to play Long Island, the Sharks. Very scary, I know. But it's a game that in week 2 as well, USF, they've gave Bama a scare. They gave Miami a little bit of a scare over the past couple years as well. So they're no easy opponent, but a lot easier than a Utah or a Miami. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team is. It's going to be easy. It's going to be great to see how this team develops over those first 2 weeks of the season.
Oh, yeah.
Before they head to Death Valley.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like the first 2 weeks, you're definitely going to know what the strengths and weaknesses are. Like before then, because like by that time you go to LSU, you know what to prepare for. I'll be honest with you. I hope Florida beats LSU. I'm so sick to death.
Me too.
I'm just so sick to death of constantly hearing about LSU. Like our LSU guys are cool. Like our LSU guys are cool. It's just, I'm just sick of it. Oh man, it's like I'm sick of ESPN propping them up constantly when Brian Kelly does nothing. But it just does his little stupid dances, and he's like the dad trying to connect with teenagers. It's so cringy, so cringe. But I'm wanted. Hello, fellow kids. Like no.
So we beat LSU last year in the game after the Texas game. That's DJ Lagway's game back from that injury he suffered against Georgia. Kind of took them by surprise. Ended up beating them by 2 scores. Florida had a lot of injuries. Jason Marshall, Devin Moore. Who was their other corner that I'm forgetting of that was also injured? We had 3 of our top 4 corners injured going into that game. And we still managed to hold them down to 16 points. We were missing Chamar or Pup Howard, our starting linebacker. They were missing a lot at the end of the season last year, and we're still able to go get those wins against LSU, Ole Miss, FSU, and Tulane as well, but those weren't as impressive. But, you get those 2 big top 25, a top 10 win against Ole Miss. That's where a lot of this hype is coming from heading into the 2025 season. And LSU plays at the other Death Valley week 1 when they play Clemson. So Brian Kelly struggles in week 1 games. You look at the past 3 seasons, FSU, and then last year they lost to USC. Not a good USC team neither. So we'll see if LSU wins that game, LSU will be a top 5, top 3, top 2, maybe top 1 team in the country, depending on how the rest of the country goes. So if they win that game, there's going to be a lot of fight. If they lose it, it's just another game that Brian Kelly loses. But, you mentioned Jimbo Fisher earlier with that crash out at Texas A&M and everything just fell apart. Could we see that with Brian Kelly here in year 4?
It's a possibility.
I talked about them a couple weeks ago, how I think this is going to be Brian Kelly's final year because I think they have a pretty tough schedule.
Hot take. Love it.
Now, the only problem, so they play Clemson week 1 at Clemson. That's a game that I think it's going to be a close game. Or spread-wise, it's going to be very close. I'll say Clemson's the favorite because they're at home. But, then week 3, you go play a Florida team that's currently on the longest win streak in the SEC. Probably gets their 2 cupcake wins, so they'll still be on that long 6-game win streak. DJ Lagway, he just has that winning effect to him. Like, doesn't have those crazy numbers, but he's winning those games against some really good teams. His only loss as a starter being the game against Georgia, where he got hurt. George saying it here. DJ Lagway is going to get Billy Napier his first 2 national championships back-to-back. Hey, I'd love to see that. But Lagway has that winning effect to him. You have a really good defensive line where LSU loses 4 of 5 starters to the NFL. These are good offensive linemen. They didn't just lose, 4 guys that are easily replaceable in the SEC. They lose Will Campbell, a first-round pick. Emory Jones, who was a 3rd or 4th round pick. I think Garrett Dellinger, that might be the name. I can't remember. Guard, and they also lost another guard who's assigned to an NFL team as well. So they're losing good offensive linemen. They bring a lot in from the transfer portal, raising some of their own guys up from recruiting. We'll see how it looks, but Florida got 7 sacks on them last year when they had a really good offensive line. Caleb Banks, Tyreek Sapp, George Gums. We're hoping that a former 5-star and LJ McCray in his second year will take a leap to become an elite pass rusher for you. So I think there's going to be a lot of questions surrounding that LSU offensive line that allows Florida to create a lot of havoc in that game.
I can't wait to see it. I'm excited to see what the Gators will bring in 2025.
So you also mentioned the Miami game, maybe the most important game of the season for the Gators, because you could lose at LSU, and that's really no one's going to be upset. I mean, people will be upset if you lose a game, but you lose at LSU. Maybe they also beat Clemson. They're a top 5, top 3 team in the country, and it's the year 2 QB at LSU story. You got the Joe Burrow story, the Jaden Daniels story. Now it's the Garrett Nussmeier story. It's just maybe it's something that you can't stop no matter how hard you try to. So that's fine. But if you lose at Miami, now Miami's recruited really well under Mario Cristobal, but that offense, you have a lot of questions about Carson Beck, where 12 picks last year, didn't even start all those games, really struggled against those good defenses. Now, the ACC doesn't have that many talented defenses, but Florida will. I mean, Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions against Florida last year in that Florida-Georgia game in the first 3 quarters. So there's going to be a lot of questions around there. Miami's defense was atrocious last year, and, they did a lot to improve on in the transfer portal, but really, if Florida wants to be competing for a playoff spot, you cannot lose that Miami game.
No, you can't lose that one for sure. I'll tell you, I'm sad that game's going away again after this year. It's like I want it to be every year, but in all seriousness, I have that weird feeling about Miami. Like, I don't know why, but I feel like they'll do, like Mario Cristobal teams always do this. They always win the big games that they shouldn't, and they lose those one games that they shouldn't. Like, I have that weird feeling that we could see them start out 4-0 by beating Notre Dame, Florida. Everybody's hyping them up as the 80s are back. The 80s are back. But then they blow it against Virginia Tech and Pitt. Because, number one, dreams go to die at Pitt. Secondly, when you go to Virginia Tech, whether if it's on a Thursday night or at nighttime, it's ugly for you if you have to go to Virginia Tech. And that's the, or they're going to lose like the one game that we don't think that they should lose, but they do anyway. Because like we look at Miami last year, they were always in a close game. They needed the referees to bail them out against Virginia Tech, and
that Hail Mary was insane.
And then like they beat Cal and Taiwan. It's like you should never be in a tight game with
There
Cal.
was the targeting. There was a targeting call in that game that gave Miami an easy scoring opportunity as well.
That was just like, my God. And we had like people actually calling that a big win because like, oh, college game day.
Yep.
It's like, no, it's like, I remember talking about with Darren Taught's ball. He's like, I don't think where he and I were just like, no, I don't think that makes a difference. I don't think like Cal lost because of Kirk Herbstreit and his dog. But Louisville, they bail out against Louisville, and it caught up with them against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, of all teams, that's not Bobby Dodd, Georgia Tech. That's Brent Key, Georgia Tech. Although Brent Key has magic.
He's the truth. He is the truth.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's Haynes King playing pretty good football. And then they went into that Syracuse game. They went up 21-0 against Syracuse in that first quarter. And they blow it to Kyle McCord. No offense to Kyle McCord. He had a really good statistical year at Syracuse last year. But you go up like 3 scores early in that game. You cannot blow that.
No. You don't blow that game, man. It's like, and then like Cam Ward walks out in the middle of halftime in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Yep. They lose to Iowa State. Iowa State gets their highest season like throughout the history of college football by getting their 11th win. But, it's like, boom. Like Iowa State had a great year, but They're still looking for that conference title, which they have not won a conference title since 1912, and that was before World War One, the Spanish flu, and the Federal Reserve, and one of our amendments, the income tax coming in, and women being able to vote throughout the whole USA. Wyoming was the first state to have women voting. How I know that? I watch a lot of Westerns, and it works out in my favor.
That does. All right, another game you talked about, mentioned it briefly, Texas A&M. That's one that's going to be really interesting. Now, DJ Lagway is from Willis, Texas, which is about 30, 45 minutes away from College Station. Texas A&M was probably the team that he grew up watching. So that's going to be a homecoming game of sorts. Probably going to have a lot of his family and friends over for that game. Maybe booing against him, maybe cheering for him. We'll see who is who are the real ones in that scenario. But you go to Texas A&M. They put a whooping to you last year. Marcel Reed had a breakout game. Connor Wiegman was the expected starter until like the day before when he got injured in practice. And Marcel Reed ends up getting the start. That Florida team was still really down bad after that Miami loss. Although Lagway threw for like 500 yards in that Samford game after Graham Mertz had to miss it because of an injury. But you end up cold start, a lot of bad coaching decisions in that Texas A&M game. They win it. I still have a lot of questions around A&M. I like Mike Elko as a coach. I thought he was a fantastic hire. They didn't get elite of an recruiting class as I thought they would last year. Finished 9th, which is still good, but I mean, Florida finished higher than them after a third year under Napier. That was fine. Like, you would expect A&M under year one, under a good season, to out-recruit Billy Napier in Florida right now. But they do that. They're sticking with Marcel Reed, which I don't know if I expect too much from him. I was listening to Bud Elliott on 247, and he was talking about Marcel Reed and that he's talked to other coaches. And when Marcel Reed faces a good defense, they just say he just doesn't have it. He just gets lost in the sauce, a bit confused. He can improve. He has a full off season, got a bunch of time to play. But if you got coaches saying that they don't think you have it, I mean, you go out and prove them wrong, but maybe he doesn't. And maybe now that Florida's improved and our defensive line is going to be really good. I mean, I have a lot of questions about the A&M defense. Remember how they finished the year? That 4 overtime game against Auburn, that USC bowl game. And they didn't score a single offensive touchdown against Texas.
I remember I asked my dad if he was watching A&M Auburn. He's like, "No, I'm watching this show with your mom." And it's like, "Well, you're missing out on A&M Auburn." It's like you're missing it, y'all. It's like 4 overtime win. You're missing your Auburn Tigers. And oh man, they do kind of do that. But
George, you're kind of putting yourself through this though, going onto their own shows. If I go to a Georgia fan's house and start talking a lot of football with them, it's going to end up happening. That's the fun of the sport, though, having all this trash talk. But round things off here, Jackson, I want to ask you, what's your overall prediction for this Florida team?
I'll know more by like July when I've got my Lindy's magazine out, and the Phil Steele magazine. I'll have it delivered by that time, and who knows, we could definitely see Phil Steele on each of the channels for Voice College Football. That'd be cool.
Ooh,
but
yeah.
But in all seriousness, though, the Gators, I'm looking at their schedule. I'm looking at 9-3 for right now. I've got like one of the wins I'm certain that Florida's going to win is Tennessee because it's death, taxes, and Tennessee always losing in Gainesville to Florida. And like the last time that happened where Tennessee won in Gainesville was 2003. And that was in the dark ages with no YouTube, no Facebook, no Twitter, no Instagram, no TikTok. I mean, you can't do the weird little selfie where you stick your tongue out.
Nope.
But it's like, oh, Tennessee will be doing that now. If they're beating Florida, they'll be doing that. But Florida, they'll be like 22 years.
Nope.
But
all right.
Here we go.
Sorry. Here we go. So you got us at 9-3. Who are the 3 losses?
Let me see. I'm thinking LSU, I'm sorry to say, is a loss. Ole Miss is one of those losses.
Interesting take.
And I'm kind of just like having you guys beat Texas.
Okay.
And
I like that.
unfortunately, I've got y'all losing to Miami,
Oh,
unfortunately.
Miami. Wow. Okay.
I don't want it to happen, though. To note that. I don't want
Okay.
Miami beating Florida. I promise you that. But,
He
like,
doesn't want it to happen.
but if it makes you feel better, I've got Miami losing to Pitt because, again, dreams go to die at Pitt. And they'll lose another game that they shouldn't. Like Syracuse is that new Georgia Tech for Miami. Like I think we're gonna see Miami get hyped up all over again. Oh my God, Miami's unbeat, Miami's unbeat. Then Syracuse crashes their dreams, and then Pitt, Virginia Tech, Pitt or Virginia Tech's gonna destroy Miami's dreams. It's just that
Yeah.
way. Carson Beck is gonna get overhyped, and it's not ending well for the Miami Hurricanes, and they're gonna be getting the torches and pitchforks outside the sheriff's office on Mario Cristobal.
I see it. No, but I don't know. That would be an interesting forecast for the season. I think Florida would get in because you have the wins over Texas and Georgia, but losing to Ole Miss is an interesting choice. But hey, and Miami, that's just the way college football works nowadays.
Kentucky's gonna keep you guys in a dogfight, unfortunately, but I think Florida's gonna win that one.
Lagley cooked them last year, so 7
Oof.
completions for 250. So
Here we
but
go, and boom, boom, boom. There we go. We've got magic coming the way for sure. Like we've only got, as far as I go, let's see, 100 days till kickoff, not 93 days. Well, no, not 93 days. Let me check. August 23rd is coming. August 23rd is coming. Week 0 is coming. 90 days. 90
90.
days.
Oh
And
man.
you're a few hours away from going 89 days. Because like once the clock crashes midnight, it's got to be 89 days till week 0. And right now we're at 95 days till week 1. 96 days till Colorado, Georgia Tech, and Auburn, Baylor. 97 days till week 1 Saturday. 98 days until Miami, Notre Dame, South Carolina, Virginia Tech, and 99 days till the start of the Bill Belichick era in Chapel Hill against the TCU Horned Frogs.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I can see you are as well. But Jackson, tell everyone where they can find you, YouTube, Twitter, anywhere else they like.
Well, they can find me on Jackson Johnson 979, where I'm 329 subs away from that magic number 1,000. They could check me out on Jackson VOCFB on @/Twitter. They can find me at Jackson Johnson 543908 on Instagram and Threads, where I've not only got some magic cooking on who's going to be on my next episodes of the Jacksonian, but you'll also see who's going to be coming up on Alabama with the Voice of College Football. And there's other developments I've got. And of course, you can check out my once a week calls on the Feinbaum Show, where the weekends are full of surprises. And let me tell you something, like Paul Feinbaum, I'm making sure I've got some facts for him. And
Yep.
and don't you worry, Tyler. We're gonna make sure Feinbaum tries to get you on because he needs to be learning about Florida Gators football. Like,
He
don't
needs
get me
to be
wrong.
enlightened.
Oh yeah. It's like, well, Michael Ditson, if you want, I'll send you the phone number. Like, it's like you can call the show 2 p.m. through 6 p.m. Central Time, but although it's 3 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time in Florida time zone.
My working hours. But Jackson, thank you so much for joining the show. I hope to join one of your shows again one day. Hope to have you on another time as well.
Oh, that'd be cool.
It would be. I'm so excited to get so close and close to the football season. You know, basketball season ended. Baseball season starting to get to that College World Series time. Bama, Florida, both looking to fight for that last hosting spot. But thank you so much for joining. I hope you have a great rest of your night and have some good shows later on. But thank you for joining.
Oh, thank you for having me on. Tell your friends, your family, and the cashiers at Publix and Walmart about the magic that Tyler and Tyler are bringing on Florida Gators Live, all right here Sunday nights on Florida at the Voice of College Football. And don't forget to tell the cashiers at Publix and Walmart about the magic that Tyler Detino is bringing on College Sports Wire. And let me tell you something. If I need a go-to from College Sports Wire, Matt Zimick, a few others, including Tyler Natuna, are my go-tos. And they should be too. Tyler Whitfield and Tyler Natuna should be your go-tos. And if you got guest suggestions for Tyler Whitfield, send them over to his X account, and he will make sure he can get them for you.
Thank you so much. Have a great Easter night.
You too, man.